welcome to TradeFlash. TradeFlash. The show where we give you the latest high, lows and whoop-de-doos. So what's the big news stories of the day that you need to be aware of right now? What are the biggest movers of the day of stock, currencies, cryptos, commodities, indices and more? So find out everything you need to know in today's episode of TradeFlash. TradeFlash. So let's have a look at the latest news. So let's have a look at the news then. A single shot of the either Oxford, AstraZeneca or the Pfizer BioNTech COVID jab reduces the chance of needing hospital treatment by more than 80%. The Public Health England data showed the effect kicked in 3 to 4 weeks after the vaccination. And also, businesses are starting to predict a breakout movement for Bitcoin. RUFFER, which manages £21 billion of investors' money, disclosed in November it had taken a small position in Bitcoin. RUFFER has invested just over 3% of its assets into Bitcoin, which is worth around £600 million. And also in the US, the S&P 500 surged on Monday and was heading for its biggest one-day gain since June, as bond markets calmed after a month-long sell-off, while developments on COVID-19 vaccines and fiscal stimulus bolstered expectations of a swift economy recovery. In France, however, a Paris court found French former President Nicolas Sarkozy guilty of corruption and influence peddling on Monday and sentenced him to a year in prison. He can ask to serve the time at home and also plans to appeal. And also, Warren Buffett is in the news again as he now owns more of a Chinese electric car company than he does of General Motors. So Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway conglomerate has a larger stake in Chinese electronic automaker BYD than it does in General Motors. It now holds an 8.2% stake in the Hong Kong listed BYD rather than the 3.7% in General Motors. So let's have a look at some of the big movers in the stock then. The big gainers in the US yesterday was MORF, which was up 134.65%. Also, AMTX was up at 51.88%. CAN was up at 46.77%. And some of the other big gainers were SOS, OSS and NCTY. In the UK side of things, the big gainers over there was AMGO, which was up at 35.38%. NSF was also up at 34% and GDR was up at 27.27%. Some of the other big movers was MHC, TLOU and CARD, Card Factory. Some of the big losers, however, in the US side of things was REPX, which was down 93.20%. ATNX was down 54.88%. OTRX, which was down 46.35%. And in the UK, some big losers there was the Braveheart Investment Group, which was down 31.16%. Cellular Goods was down 29.26%. And Province Resources was also down almost 14%. So let's have a look at the indices then. The S&P 500 was up 2.38% yesterday. The Dow 30 up 1.95%. The DAX was also up 1.64%. And the FTSE 100 also showing promise with a rise of 1.62%. So looking good in the indices. So let's have a look at the big movers in currencies then. The euro was down against the US dollar at 0.23%. The US dollar was up against the Japanese yen at 0.22%. The British pound was down against the US dollar at 0.07%. The Australian dollar was up against the US dollar at 0.83%. The US dollar was down 0.68% against the Canadian, and the US dollar was up against the Swiss franc at 0.69%. So let's have a look at the cryptocurrencies then. Bitcoin was up at 7.35%. Ethereum was also up at 7.09%. XRP was also up at 5.92%. Bitcoin Cash was up. Litecoin also up, and IOTA also showing positive. And in the commodities, in the energy side of things, crude oil was down 1.77%, natural gas was up 0.18%, Brent oil was down 2.10%,
Gasoline also down at 0.58%, and heating oil and ethanol also down. Looking into the metals, gold was slightly down at 0.32%, silver was up at 0.86%, and platinum was up at 0.60%. In the agricultural, coffee was down at 1.24%, cotton showing promise yesterday at 3.08%, soybean down at 0.85%, and also wheat, sugar and corn also showing us down.
So let's have a look at the events coming up this week then. As you can see from the list there's quite a few events to keep an eye on. The big events seem to be happening around Thursday and Friday, such as the Fed's Chair Powell speaks, also the average hourly earnings, and non-farm employment change coming up later on in the week. So that's it for today. You are now up to date. I'll be back for tomorrow with more. Remember, like, share and subscribe so you can be bang up to date with TradeFlash.
TradeFlash.